Okay, good morning. I'd like to call the Public Works Committee meeting to order, and if Anne Marie would take attendance.
Mrs. Labuda.
Here.
Mr. Benson.
Here.
Mrs. Geiger. Mrs. Edwards. Mr. Sorensen. Mr. Ruiz.
Here.
Mr. Samuelson.
Here.
We do have a quorum.
Okay. Okay, first we have a jail discussion item on the agenda. I'd like to start with that.
Mrs. Geiger's in.
About 2 weeks ago,
I told her that.
about 2 weeks ago, the committee met again.
Mr. Sorensen's
And
in.
is Ira here? Ira, Sam. There's a company by the name of Goldberg and GGA. No, thank you, GGA. They approached Ira a couple months ago. Ira asked if we'd have them in for a meeting. They are going to. They think that they can save us a couple $1 million, maybe several $1 million on the construction of our jail. Sam and Ira met. We signed an agreement with them. Sam.
No, I sent them a revised agreement this morning containing the language that they had asked for. I spoke with Ms. Goldberg yesterday. Our target is to have it signed tomorrow. The agreement is for a flat fee of $2,500. I have a direction from your chairman. It'll be. We don't need a resolution to do that. We'll do it through the resolution in 2011, giving Josh and I the authority to execute an agreement of that amount. So we can do it immediately. You don't have to go through the full board to get that agreement done.
What's included in that $2,500?
They will do a study. I've got the agreement here if you want to see it, Gene. They will do a study to see if they can design a facility that will save substantial dollars. They have to design it in a manner that meets with the approval of the Commission of Correction in Albany. They also added to it something we hadn't asked for originally, that they'll also make recommendations on continued use of the old jail in the event we want to do that. And they will, when the study is complete, and they have a proposal for 30 days to complete the study. They will meet with jail administrator here. They've already gone out to see the current site. They will have a concept study, obviously not plans and specs for construction, but a concept study that will get the approval of the Commission of Correction.
I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I'd still like it to include a look at the old Woodburn Annex site.
Understood.
I'll get to that in a minute. Go ahead, Sam.
They also, Gene, in there, have committed to give us cost figures going forward, including cost of operation going forward. In other words, they are going to lay out, not only will the jail, the construction be A, B, and C, but if you do it this way, you'd only need X number of correction officers to man the posts. I have told them in my conversation with them yesterday about Woodburn.
That's my biggest concern. I'm not concerned more about most of the other logistics. I just want to make sure that site is not overlooked again.
They're not going to be doing a specific on that site, just so you know. They're going to be doing a plan, hopefully that we could take to any site. I'm not sure, but.
That's even better.
And then if the concept is something that we want to pursue because we can think we save a lot of money, we'll have to go out with a new RFP to get a new architect.
Okay. Okay.
They will be permitted to bid.
I took for the third or fourth time a tour of our jail because I hadn't been in about 2 years, and thank you, Hal, for the tour. I want to be careful what I say because I know the media's here, but it is a dungeon, and it's the money that we are, in my opinion,
Thanks for being careful.
wasting. You don't want to know what I really think it is, do you?
It's a
But
jail.
I asked Hal, I mean, there's big fans over there because there's no air conditioning. There's a whole list of things that are just, but I asked Hal and I asked Josh's office to put, for next month's meeting, I want a number of what the jail is costing us now. One of my main concerns is we're out boarding prisoners, inmates, and I asked Hal, he has a board of Orange County and Ulster County and Rensselaer County, And I said, why are we driving people to Rensselaer County? That's, to me, is so far, but Hal, did you wanna, can you explain what?
What we've run into in the past 2 months is that all these other facilities that we normally use are at capacity. They have no room for us. So we have now had to start expanding out across the state. Simple as that.
And I
But
think,
one of the questions that I have, and I understand that we're expanding out across the state, and I do recognize the fact that it's costing a couple $100 a day per prisoner, but how much is it costing us to keep a prisoner in-house?
You,
once,
you are
But
confusing,
I
you're
want,
confusing
I want the
issues.
answer to that, please.
It's about $180 a day, $175 a day, but you're confusing the issue. It's still costing you that,
I
even though you're boarding
understand
them
that,
out.
but the saying that it's costing you $200 a day to board somebody out, nobody's saying that it's costing you $175 to keep them in. So, I mean, the difference, I don't want it sounding so huge, that's what I'm getting at.
Well, it is huge.
Kitty, it cost us.
It is huge because we have budgeted
Yeah.
for the year, it's gonna cost, whatever, $10 million to run your jail. If we keep everybody in-house, it's gonna cost you $10 million, or maybe less, depending on how creative we can be, to run your jail. So here, you're gonna come up with, right now, we're running about $120,000 a month. You're gonna have to find $120,000 a month to pay these bills, because it wasn't budgeted.
Kitty, excuse me, Hal, I think the number that Josh and I came up with last month was, it was $150,000 last month.
I was just throwing
So
out
at the end of
ballpark.
this year, if we continue down this path, it'll be cost the taxpayers $1 million to transport prisoners. Is that an accurate statement?
I think
Which-
last month, Josh, I think last month we were at 400,000 already this year, somewhere around there.
Your number for daily up there also doesn't include taking 2 correction officers out of the jail to transport these people up there and back. That means having to use other correction officers to fill those posts in the jail, so that the actual charge that you get from another county is only a very small part of what you ultimately wind up having.
Well, keep in mind too, your dental, your medical, all those issues are also on top of your daily fee. They charge that as it comes along.
Well, another concern that I have, and I don't know if we can separate this out, I really don't know if it's possible. The idea right now, when we're looking at the jail, we're looking at it as a complex, which is where the sheriffs and road patrol and everything else is. I wanna make sure that in fact we're separating it out, because if we do keep it separate, then moving the sheriff's department headquarters to someplace else might help decrease the cost of some things. And then we have different types of prisoners. And I know the Woodburn facility, from what I understand, it's more of a dormitory type facility, so the type of prisoner in there would have to be different, so what I'm.
That's not my point
But
from the
that is
Woodburn
my
facility.
point. If
Well,
we-
I'm not saying to use those buildings as your jail. I'm saying to use those buildings to house your road patrol, to house your visitors section, to even have a break room for your COs, so they're not locked up like prisoners 8 hours a day on all their shifts. That's what I'm saying. There's still enough land to put a jail there.
Okay, so folks, here's the plan.
Killing 2 birds with 1 stone, in my opinion.
Kitty, the present plan
It-
originally included moving this entire sheriff's
Right.
complex. Plans that we have today do not include that.
Good. I'm glad
Okay.
to hear that.
Okay, so I think all of everybody here has toured the jail, correct? Okay.
I haven't seen it yet, but can I just say something?
Sure.
I'm aware that the jail, something needs to be done with the jail. You know, I know there's been tours there, I've heard from, Hal. My issue with the whole jail project is, and I'm really glad that the legislature decided to go to, to move toward getting the alternative design or, plan from Goldberg Associates. I think that that's a step in the right direction. But if you look at, and I did some research on the numbers throughout the jail, and Hal can probably help me out with it, on the state level, crime, the state prison population has actually been reduced. But the jails themselves are building for capacity, and from what I understand, it's because of the level of low-level crimes, low offenses, minor offenses, populations of the mentally ill. So instead of our jail capacity going down because prison, they're not shifting prisoners in, the capacity is gonna need to be expanded. So I had found by chance this diagram from New York State Association of Counties that actually showed the completed number of projects for jails that brought the total capacity up to almost 5,000, and then current jail facilities. And then a map of the county that shows Sullivan with the number of beds rounded off to the nearest 100, which shows about a necessity of about 400 beds, but we're at 208, I understand, currently. So if,
We're at
185.
185 because we shut down a
okay,
block.
we're at 208 as of September 9th when I asked for the numbers.
That's the number of cells that are there. We're not allowed to use them all. We're limited to 185.
Okay, so
by
the number I got was the number of inmates was 208 today as of September 9th. But, okay, give or take,
No,
186.
we're confused. She's talking about
200.
how many inmates we actually have in custody, and we're talking about cells available.
Okay, so, design of the jail is for 256 cells with a max occupancy of 304. So I guess my question is, to make it brief, can we look at the jail population, the current jail population, and determine who of that population is low-level offenses? Because it looks like that's why we're building our jail capacity. If you look at other counties in the state, they're looking at alternatives to incarceration, which I believe is going to be addressed in Public Safety Committee today. And would it be a possibility of an option, and I'm just throwing this out there, and in the jail meetings, it could be something that could be discussed. If Jean has toured the facility in Woodburn, and it has water and sewer, and there's a possibility that it could be used as maybe a step-down jail for low-level offenses, instead of building, an aggressive jail project, if we scaled it back by addressing the prison population numbers themselves and tried to maybe do a renovation at Woodburn and build a smaller facility to house those criminals that couldn't be stepped down. Is that a possibility?
Okay, Alan, Jonathan, then Hal. Alan.
I'm just,
Yeah.
I think when you start looking at operating a new complex or an additional complex, and I'm looking over at Ed, you're gonna have the operation and maintenance costs, which, for that complex, which might easily be 400,000.
It starts adding up when
But
you
when
do
you're talking
multiple
$80 million
complex.
jail
Yeah.
project, which I'm hoping it won't be when all is said and done, but when you're talking about 80 million, and I know that some counties actually, like Kitty was asking, boarding out versus, boarding out plus operating a jail, you're talking budgets of $20 million versus boarding out of, say, 8 million.
Cindy, just let
So-
Alan finish, honey.
I'm sorry.
Alan, go ahead. I didn't,
No, that's-
he wanted, go ahead. When he's done, you can, Jonathan, then Cindy, and Hal.
Okay. That is a concern, I've been out to the Woodburn Annex, so that, that is a concern. Also, I think the geographic location, because it's kind of right at the edge of Ulster County there, so, I think for the road patrol, it's a little bit out of the way. But I do think, I brought this up last month, I'd like us, as we're exploring this jail issue, to take a look at the more critical, immediate need, which is housing the road patrol. And I do think that the building that we own down at the Apollo Plaza, the one that's behind the Apollo Plaza, has merit as a location for the road patrol. And I know we explored it, I think back in 2006 or thereabouts, and 2008-9 as a location for the road patrol. It's a good geographic location. It's right off the exit. Building has good bones, so I think it could readily, easily be retrofitted. And I really would like us to move that up in the discussion in terms of seriously looking at, getting some updated cost estimates for the renovation to house the road patrol and to move in that direction.
But
Jonathan?
that's not part of the jail plan, just to be, that was removed from it, right? Am I
That's what
Correct.
I'm understanding from Sam.
Correct. It is not part of the project anymore.
Because the original project was 120 million, you scaled
is
down to
correct.
80 million.
That's correct.
Okay, Jonathan?
When you're looking at counts, you can't look, it's not
very similar to the DSS conversation. You can't just look at number of people, you have to know who the people are, because wings are dedicated strictly for women or men.
Maternity.
So your count, you can't just say we have a count of 180 people, so we need 180 cells, and that takes care of things, because they're by wing and they're by pod, and that's how the design for the count was set up at the 2 and change. It's your ability to put 285 of the right people in the right pod at the
Is
right time, that
limited.
is not gonna happen, so your fluctuation's always gonna, the count's gonna fluctuate based on that, so you're gonna build more beds. You have to build more capacity than your actual number, but when we originally looked at this, we looked at some projections, it came out at 400 or 425 and said, we're not building for the one day we're at max capacity, we wanna build for the, where it hits the graph for the most months at the most time, which is what got us to 280 something, 256. I mean, it was not just a number picked out of a hat, there was a lot of science and it was a lot of debate and discussion, because the original number was much higher than that. So, and then all county jails have to be built to max security capacity
Yes.
standards. You
Yes.
can't have the ability to put a pod of low security, and you can't mix and match.
Well, some counties, some larger counties have split up their facilities, and they operate 2 different facilities.
Jail and a penitentiary.
Correct. So, I mean, there is that possibility. But
Question.
the cost to this county, I'm sorry, is gonna be huge. You talk about taking, let's say we're gonna take, excuse me, all of our sentence prisoners and we'll put them over in the Woodburn Annex. Now, you're gonna have probably, and of course, the state's gonna dictate this, not me, but I'm figuring at least 2 officers and a supervisor. You're gonna have someone, 1 or 2 people for recreation period. So, you know, it's gonna take every shift 4 or 5, maybe 6 people, corrections officers to run that facility.
You're not allowed to pick the amount, that's what he's telling you, is that the state, the number of posts are
That
dictated by the
facility's gonna have
state.
minimum staffing levels.
It will have
Right.
minimum staffing levels, just like our jail. And then also, you're gonna have some kind of medical staff on site for medical
Not here.
emergencies.
So if we,
And-
I'm sorry,
Let me finish. And you're gonna have to feed these folks.
so ATI.
So now you're either gonna have to truck food from this facility over to that one, but you're still gonna have to have people over there to serve, to dish it out. And you're also gonna have some type of visitation for these people. So, I mean, to me, it's gonna end up costing you millions of dollars a year to operate a second facility.
So
It's
if-
just reality.
If I could ask a question, you're talking about pods, and how many pods we're building. How many people go in a pod?
50, 48.
Depends.
Depends on the
There's
size.
four
Again, it's
pods.
number.
Depends on the size of the pot.
I'm asking how.
All of our pods, except for our discipline, have been designed to hold 48 single cell, and when we get the authorization to double bunk, there will be 60 per pod.
So that allows for the swing of the population, does it not?
Correct, and also inside these pods, we have designed that we have 3, and in some pods, 4 subdivisions. So in other words, one officer can watch a maximum security prisoner over here, we could have a minimum security prisoner over there, and a minor prisoner over here. One officer can watch all those classifications because of the subdivisions that we had put in the original plans.
But can
So we
I-
had taken into account the classification issue when we designed it.
But the 4 pods that were originally proposed, that's not part of this 256 with double bunking, right? For the current Labella plan.
Yes.
That
Yeah.
includes.
Yes, it is.
That includes the 48 per pod, 4 pods, that would be an
Absolutely.
additional
Mhm.
200. Because the plan, isn't the plan the main facility and then you have room to expand into the 4 pods?
No, the main facility is a pod design system.
Right.
But it is expandable to get to
So
the
what is the
400.
Labella plan planning for?
256, 303.
So that's, we're not projecting any increase
I
of
mean,
inmates
when
coming
they did
in?
the study, they projected that this facility in 10 years will not be large enough, but it was a general consensus that we needed to downsize because of the money.
But the plan itself is including room to expand if
Absolutely.
the
Yes.
state, because they're downsizing their prison population. So naturally, they wanna see our municipality's jail bigger so that they have a place to put their
No, they can't.
population.
We don't have
Oh,
any
they
state
can't,
prisons.
state
But the
can't,
federal government can.
state can't put their prisoners in the jail. Let's be clear on a couple of things. County jail handles two types of inmates. People who have not yet been tried, convicted, and sentenced, and they can be anybody, from serial killer down to DWI. The other thing you house in a county jail are county sentenced prisoners
Under a
who
year.
can only be sentenced up to a maximum of 1 year, misdemeanors. State prisons handle felons sentenced for more than 1 year. Now, there are, as Hal said, there are some counties that take their own facility and divide it. Westchester, for example, has a jail and a penitentiary, but its penitentiary is only for people up to 1 year, and it's immediately next door to the jail. It's really a fancy classification system is what they've done. State can't send felons back into the county jail system.
But if the state's downsizing their facilities, where are those prisoners gonna go?
It's not prisoners. What has occurred is your repeal of your Rockefeller drug laws. It used to be that, and I don't quote me
The
because I
laws
don't.
changed, right?
I don't remember the amounts, but if you had a little bit of heroin, it was mandatory, you were going to state prison for 2 years. Well, they have repealed that as unconstitutional. So a lot of these folks that now have these smaller amounts of drugs on them, that typically would have been going to state prison, are now being sentenced to county time.
So because of the law change, we could see an increase in prison, or our
No,
jail
it's
population,
It's already
our
happened.
jail.
It's already happened.
The only thing that will increase our population now is if our population grows.
The other thing you
No, they could
asked,
change, they could repeal some of
Cindy,
their.
you asked about, do we plan for expansion? Just so you know, the present plan, what Mr. Goldberg comes up with may be totally different. The present plan has a core, and the core means the part of the facility that houses kitchen, laundry, administrative, all of those
Booking.
things. Booking,
Was built
Visitation.
for what
for
capacity?
the max capacity.
And what
which
is that number?
I believe it's 600, I think.
Right.
You can stretch it
So
out.
there is
Pods.
a plan.
Individual
Right.
pods to house those people are not planned to be built. They could be added, but you wouldn't have to increase the size of the kitchen, the laundry, the administrative wing, booking.
So
and
why
those
was that
things.
initially proposed for that original plan, to make those areas max if we're only at
Because the cost of
256?
expanding the kitchen, you have to shut the facility down, you have to, so by doing it this way, if we needed to add another 50 cells, we would not have to shut the existing
add
facility down,
another
disrupt
refrigerator or
operation.
whatever.
We would just, you'd be able to add,
you're
build
building
it.
for
and-
No,
600.
You're not
Cindy, I believe the difference is,
That
in my
area
mind,
is built for max
difference is,
capacity.
you got a simple house that you build,
Right.
your kitchen, your bathroom, and everything's the same.
Bedrooms you can add later.
Now you can add dormers.
But to build for a
But your
capacity of
core of your
600
house.
is a lot.
There was no savings to reduce the size of the kitchen. It was,
Well, they may
it
look
was
at
so
that.
incrementally
Goldberg
small,
may
it
look
made no
at that.
sense.
Goldberg may look at
We already
that.
had somebody look at that.
Exactly.
Right.
We
Brought in
did.
a-
You did.
Hey,
Right.
folks,
I remember
okay.
that was one of the
Listen,
details.
the present year has lasted us 102 years, so we have to plan for the future. You don't want to go out and buy an $80 million jail,
No,
and in
no.
10 years, you gotta say, gotta add something on. It's for, it hopefully will last us another 100 years. That's the whole idea of it. Okay, so here's the plan. On September 24th, and I suggest to the people that have never toured a jail, please make yourself available on the 24th at 8:30. We're gonna meet out in the lobby. Ed is gonna get us a county bus or van. We're gonna go over to Delaware County to visit their jail. I'm not driving with you on your motorcycle, no. It's important because when we talk about pods, and you need to see it. You really need to see it. Right, Alan? I mean, you have to get a visual of this. So if the media is welcome, if they want to come, everybody, you need to call Michelle by Friday the 20th, because we need to know what size van we need. If you'd like, you can drive your own car or your own motorcycle. That's up to you, okay? Then my suggestion will be, in October, we're going to take a tour of the Woodburn Annex. You need to see that also. So I don't know that date yet. Let's get through the The Delaware County Jail will visit that, and then in October, we'll go back over to Woodburn, okay?
Is the Delaware
What are
County
you saying,
Jail,
the 20
I'm sorry, the 24th, which is a Tuesday, at 8:30, a
Right.
meeting in the lobby.
and
Right.
it's
To
similar
tour
to
the
what
Delaware
we're
County
proposing?
Jail.
That I
So
got.
we're gonna
Okay.
go and
But
see
what-
this
what-
$80 million
That's all.
facility.
Excuse me, Cindy?
The Delaware County Jail, from
Right.
what Jonathan says, is similar to what Sullivan is proposing.
Correct.
It's based on the
It's-
pod
It's
concept.
the
based on the
Labella
pod.
plan. Right.
They can only
So-
hold 98 inmates,
But
100
it's,
inmates.
but they have the design
that's
as
on
to
It's the
what-
same design, it's
That's
just.
on the map.
Yeah, okay? Anybody, Scott?
I just want to bring up the point, going back to the Woodburn facility. I remember in the first jail committee meeting, it was stated that the COC had already disqualified that site. So I did send a letter to the COC asking them to look at it again at Gene's request.
Okay.
They sent back that they would have to see full plans for it before they would make any determination, which is another conversation we had in the jail committee meeting, that would
Right.
cost us another couple of $100,000 to have those plans for them to assess. So
They
that's
are-
where the Woodburn facility sits at this point
But they
with
are
the
sending
COC.
it down to look at it.
They said that they would send somebody down to look at it, but they really thought that they could not make a determination unless they knew what we wanted to do there.
And then Hal, not for this, 1 second. I know that you worked on numbers at one point when we were thinking about Woodburn, you had done the numbers back and forth. Could you maybe bring them to the next meeting, because we're gonna start talking about
Okay.
would you mind? Okay.
Yeah.
I thought that was just transportation numbers. If I'm
It
not
is.
mistaken.
It is transportation numbers, but if you're talking about, if you're gonna build a facility in Woodburn, and it's gonna be, every day gonna transfer people, we'd like to see what would cost the taxpayers, yes.
When is the
Cindy.
next
That
jail
happens
meeting?
now.
The next jail
I don't know, we
task
haven't
force
set it up
meeting?
yet.
Okay. You'll send it out?
Hold on, folks, the jail meeting, you mean with the,
Jail review.
the jail review committee meeting? Okay.
Right.
There can only be 4 legislators there, okay?
Are they remaining closed? Because I know initially you had said the first one.
No,
would be
I know,
closed
what I
and-
know, like when you have your sub meetings, your sub things, what
So
I
they're
said
closed.
was, the jail meeting is with staff. Whatever is discussed at those meetings is brought back to this meeting, because only 4 legislators can attend. So, Alan's 1, I am 1, Scott is 1, and who am I missing? Cora, because Cora's public safety. If at some point Alan cannot come, Alan, would you let us know?
Yeah.
So that you could send either Kitty or Cindy. But whatever is discussed there, it's discussed here. Nobody's hiding anything, trust me. Okay, moving on. Ed, you're up.
Well, as Alan brought up the ARC building, where, is that, you want to start into that one?
Yes,
right
go
now?
ahead.
That's looking at rehabbing that building. Our last estimates were done in '09. The first one we came up with, Bernie did, was approximately $1 million to go in there and really redo that building. One of the big things is the HVAC system in there really needs to be replaced. It's no longer going to be supportive. We're at, $250,000 in '09 for that alone. We have actually started some work down in there at that time. DPW forces went in and we had a layout that we had gone over with the sheriff, and we started redoing some wall locations and of that nature. But that one, we also have to change restrooms in there. That's slab on grade, so that's a lot of cut and into concrete flooring and redoing piping in there. They also need holding cells, so we have to address that, locker room in there. So we're probably pushing closer with cuts to what we had, because we weren't going with $1 million, but we're probably close to $500,000 yet still into that facility to make it really a functional one for that. Right now, we have a third of the building we're using for the voter storage at this time, and we're running equipment for that down there.
So my understanding of that building was that, we took a tour of that with the sheriff back in a year and a half ago. And that the plug was pulled on that because, that the future of that building was in question.
Well, I think, we as the legislature have the ability to determine the future of that building.
Yeah, that's why I'm curious about, why the plug was pulled, why it was on hold, where the money's
Well,
coming from.
because, first of all, because of cost, but, the cost was a big issue, but I still think if we're gonna start planning on building a new jail, which I think we have to me, it would only make sense to put the sheriff's patrol over with the new jail site. It's up to, you're gonna take $500,000 out of the, I don't know, you have it in your budget, where are we getting?
No.
Okay,
So what I'd
Well,
like
I
to
think-
see are all the options
Okay.
very systematically laid out with
do we own the
columns of the
We
costs
own the
for
building. Right
each
now,
of
it is
those.
a part of
Isn't
the
that part of the
Wall
Apollo
project
deal?
that
Yeah.
we have it committed
Right.
to a developer. So we would have to go back and renegotiate that and substantially reduce the amount of money that he would be paying. So, I mean, that's a choice, and Alan is right. We would have to decide that as a legislature, but at this point in time, that is part of that deal.
That's exactly what I'm referring to.
Yeah.
I do
So-
think,
it was.
What's that? No, it
No,
is.
I
It's
think-
100% part
And
of the
that
deal.
raises another question.
I
What's
think-
going on with that deal?
Right?
well,
That's-
that's it.
that's
I
the
think,
different-
I think we need to go back and renegotiate that deal with respect to this building, because while 500,000 sounds like a lot of money, and I'm not saying that it's
1%
It is a
insignificant.
lot
on
of
our
money.
tax. Yeah.
The reality
$80 million.
is, it's a 10,000 square foot building, somewhere in that vicinity.
Somewhere in that vicinity, a third of it right now is under, for voter.
The reality is, there is no other building or facility, and correct me if I'm wrong, that for 500,000, we could either purchase to relocate the sheriff's patrol. And the fact that we already own the building, it has a replacement value of about $2 million. That was going to spend a number of years, so we have an asset to begin with. So it's a matter of renovating the structure. Geographically, it's perfectly situated, because it has great access to the highway. If the Apollo is reconstructed, which we hope it will be reconstructed, then you have the road patrol presence there. If the casino gaming is approved and EPR moves forward with their facility, you have the road patrol right there, very conveniently located. I think it's a great location, and we're not talking about providing a suitable space, for the road patrol 5 years from now. We could really have this done in a matter of, months.
well,
Well, we'd have to get into final, and as of right now, I don't have a buildings engineer, so I may actually need
Okay.
some consultant design work, especially.
I'd like
I think
say something also.
the more important question, look, I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm gonna put this up front, right? I'm not going back and negotiating anything, because we've been talking about Apollo for 4 years. That thing we should have been cutting the ribbon 2 years ago. So you wanna go down that road, go ahead, but I am not going back to Apollo now. I'm talking to you, yeah, I mean,
I'm agreeing with you.
okay, because
I'm just
it's
saying,
too
'cause
long
I've been
already.
involved in the Apollo deal, it's taken a long time, I'll be the first to admit. There is a signed letter of intent. This legislature certainly has the ability to change that deal, but it's going back on what we agreed to. And before the letter of intent was signed, I came back to this group and asked, this is what the deal was, it didn't change, and no one said pull any buildings out. So if the vote comes that you want to do that, you're going back and reneging on what you promised. Now, it has taken a long time, I'll be the first to admit. The annexation and all the things that needed to be done happened in the last 2 months. I think the time period of the 90 days is coming up, so that deal can move along. Certainly, if this board is considering it, I think we have the right, or we should, go and tell them so they don't start spending more money on engineering if you plan on changing the deal now.
Well, the same holds true for making Ed spend time.
Exactly.
On that.
Vice versa, but
I don't think we should change the deal. I would like to know the status of how it's moving along on the Apollo.
Sam?
Can we deal with that in
Just so you
time?
know, the specific about that building in the proposed agreement for the Apollo was that we would be able to continue using it as a lease for a maximum of 5 years for the storage of the
Machines.
election voting machine.
Yeah.
So it is referenced in there, it is referenced that at a certain point, that building is gonna go over to the developer. So you would have to change that provision of the proposed agreement with the developer, because they have some plans for using that building for something else.
So that means that we're paying to keep the stuff there, once it's leased?
I forget what the
Well,
term
that-
is, I think it's.
I don't think there was a.
Well, to be
think
clear
there's a
about
payment
that,
number.
parcel, if I'm not mistaken,
I think it's
is
a
not
dollar.
on the front parcel, which is gonna be the first part of the deal. It's on
No.
the
It
second.
was second
The-
phase.
It's
I'm
on the
I'm
second
going with the
phase.
statement that Sam Yansford just said, that we would then be leasing back.
We'd be leasing, I don't know if there's a dollar amount
I don't think there
attached
is a
to it.
dollar
I
amount.
think it may even be $1 for all I know,
Yeah.
you know, $1 nominal. But my point was, it was a fixed period of time because the developer was counting on using that building for other things.
I get
when-
that part.
When they move to the back
When they
end, so you
exercise
would
the
have to
option.
change that.
So the agreement only is for county storage for 5
Of
years?
the voting machines.
Right,
They're
that's
there
the
now.
agreement, that's
I
the
don't
use.
remember.
I don't think it was specific for
I don't
what we were
remember if it's
using it
specific
for.
in there.
The,
I'll pull it and look at it.
the applicant didn't believe he was gonna have need for the space for the first 4 or 5 years, and that's why it wasn't necessarily just part of the building. The building is gonna be part of the second phase of the project. So he didn't have an issue. First of all, we still own the building. He has an option for a couple of years, so he wouldn't be paying any rental until he would proceed on the back end of the project. But do we want to put $500,000 in a project that someone has an option on? That doesn't make sense to me.
I'd like to have a copy of the original letter of intent, to look at that again. But I do think, you know, the other thing we have to factor in is that building and the property that is attached to it was purchased for the Phase 2 medical expansion. So the county still owes somewhere in the vicinity of $2 million on that property.
Check with Ira what we owe on
That's what it was when we had this discussion about a year ago, so I assume it's less at this point.
Right, so it's.
Hopefully.
Obviously, we can't take less than what we owe, so.
Well, I don't know, but you mean if you make a bad deal, you stick with a piece of property that no one's gonna buy for what you owe? That doesn't make sense to me.
That's
So
not,
how's
that
the
was an
auction all the
issue.
time with that?
There's an
Want
issue on
less
the
than what
bond.
they're worth.
Bonding.
This
We
would be-
can't.
We're
Issues
drifting here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's stay on point.
But that wasn't for the whole.
Ira, did you want anything
No,
else?
no, that doesn't affect the-
No, same.
Scott, Cindy?
Kathy, I just wanted to go back while Hal is here
Okay.
and just,
Hal's not leaving, right, Hal?
because I
down.
He's sitting down there.
I did
Hal.
not.
It's
Sorry.
the first time in the history of a committee meeting you've
I know.
actually sat down.
Well, look, this is the largest capital expenditure that we're ever gonna see, so, I mean, I really feel like, I didn't see the,
Hold on.
I didn't see the Labella plan, so I don't know
Cindy?
what was included in it for energy efficiency, management, energy going forward. I see on the summary that I got, there is a geothermal heat
There is,
pump
right?
system.
Yes, there
But
is.
was there any discussion, because it might be the time to discuss it, if GGA is going back to do a plan, can we do a solar project on that roof, or what would include that? You know, Hal and I just had a brief
Cindy, there had
discussion.
been discussion about that, and that was part of what they did with Zavodkins. It was capital cost versus operating and savings into the future. Capital cost was less expensive when they put HVAC up on the roof, and instead of putting it into a separate
In the second
building.
floor.
Those are options, you can change
Well,
any way you want.
that's my point. If we're going back
But
to
they have studied
GGA
that
for
already.
savings, incorporate into the savings some of these energy efficiency measures maybe that have been left
Absolutely.
out, that'll carry us into 50 years, because it looks like we're gonna be bonding for 30.
Absolutely. That is part of it.
10 million bucks, that's the proposal.
And Cindy, I have it,
Am I
I'll be
right?
happy to give it to you, because I'd like to get rid of it. I had Labella's plan in my office for the last 6 years, so I'd be happy to give you whatever you don't have.
Yeah, that would be
Take it
good.
home and read it.
Right,
If you have
because
any
I do read
suggestions,
everything,
let me
so
know,
I
okay?
can- I'll sit there for a week if I have to.
Took me 6 years, so if we can do it in a week, good luck.
You gotta get some back-ends report.
Get my kids in bed early.
Don't tell them because you have to read the jail plan.
No, but
Okay.
I don't wanna leave this meeting without that being a part of some discussion before
It
GGA
has
comes
been and
back.
it continues to be.
But is GGA, is it in the agreement with GGA to include
Well, we're giving them the
that?
broadest possible latitude to find the cheapest possible
And it
way.
was- and
I don't wanna
To
suggest.
incorporate alternative energy measures.
It was in Lubella's construction design that when they were gonna go to bid, they were gonna have bid alternates for geothermal, energy efficiency to be able to compare the cost and the savings. There was gonna be 2 sets of options for all of the major stuff. This all went through.
I understand that, I wasn't here then, but I'm saying with GGA, are they aware that the legislature has made a commitment to alternative energy?
Yes.
Okay,
It's gonna be bid that
they
way.
need to be.
Kitty?
All
Well, I
right.
wanna see it.
This seems a little strange to me. We
No, it
separate-
doesn't. Go ahead. Trust me, it doesn't. I've been here for 14 years, no. All right.
We separated out the cost from the cost of the jail.
Right,
We have not included the sheriff's headquarters
correct.
in that cost.
Yeah, right.
And yet, we're saying that we can't move the sheriff's headquarters to where we have the voting machines, because we already made a deal on that. And putting the sheriff's headquarters all the way over in Woodburn also doesn't make sense. So what are we doing, making it disappear, the sheriff's headquarters? I mean, where are
No.
we dealing with the cost of that?
Kitty, go ahead, Josh.
Well, I think the question is becomes, do you want to revisit and potentially look at putting the sheriff back at the jail, or, and whatever that's gonna cost versus spending $500,000 or whatever that turns out to be for, and if that's not gonna be a permanent solution, do you dump 500, 750,000 for a 2 to 3 year fix if you're really gonna move them to the jail site at some point anyway? That's the real financial question that you need to ask.
So Kitty, my suggestion would be, like I said, we have this other company coming in with, they think they can build the jail for whatever the savings could, maybe we could, we could revisit putting the sheriff's patrol back wherever we're gonna site the new jail. To me, that would be the place it belongs.
Right.
Ira?
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's my recollection, I could be wrong, you could correct me if I'm wrong. Originally, the new jail was gonna be designed that way.
Which way?
Have sheriff.
With all of the sheriff's needs, including his administrative offices and the road patrol, all in one place. And when the cost became too much, some of those things dropped off to get the cost down. So I wouldn't be surprised to see now with this new undertaking that we're all going through now, to elicit new proposals, that you will find we will be able to have a new jail with all of those things included again,
Right.
all in one location where it should be at a lesser cost.
And
I
which is,
anticipate that that's the result of this process.
and where it's gonna be bonded over 30 years, opposed to trying to come up with $500,000 now for like, Ed said, for a facility that we don't know, so.
Whoa.
Just out of curiosity,
Mhm.
I know that there's no grant money out there for jails.
It's
It's unheard of.
That's correct.
But is there grant money out there for sheriff headquarters? I mean,
Kitty, I think your biggest avenue and potential for getting grants will either be the water and sewer and some of your GDP or whatever your local grants are on improving the water infrastructure, and then on the energy efficiency. You
Energy.
could potentially access either low interest loans for a geothermal heat pump, or maybe for solar panels, or whatever you're looking at, but that, you're not gonna get grant money to just construct a 256
You may be able
self
to tap
facility, but these energy efficiencies and potentially the water and sewer, you may be able to get some grants for
Well,
that.
because I really don't wanna revisit a plan and add things on if we're going for savings. But did I not hear before in the meeting that, what's the proposal for the current jail site?
As far as,
what?
Once we build the new jail? I mean,
current jail site supposedly is on.
Notice,
no, the current jail is gonna be demolished, done,
There
never
hasn't been-
used
there
again?
hasn't been any discussion that I'm aware of about that. But Mr. Goldberg said as part of his study, he would make some recommendations, if he could, about continued use of the existing facility for things
Okay,
like.
so he's including that in,
with
so it
things like
could be,
record storage
it could be
or-
utilized for a sheriff, which I know
I don't-
probably at this point.
I don't know what it could be utilized for, but he offered to look at that. We'd never talked about that before.
Okay.
Including that for, including that for free.
He's looking at the current jail site for free.
Right, part of the study.
And it could possibly, instead of adding to the cost now of the the proposed jail. It could be an
Should
alternative.
bring the cost down of everything.
It could save us on other stuff.
Okay, let's finish that discussion. I think we're done for now.
I sure wish the last couple of legislatures would have addressed this, really.
I tried, Scott. I never had the 6 votes, that's why we're still talking about it.
Oh.
Time has changed.
This thing should have been built. So.
Yeah, guess what, in 1989, the supervisors
Sheriff
passed the
Sheriff Watson was supposed to build.
In 1989, I got the resolution from the Board of Supervisors. Let's go start building the jail, okay? Hal, you remember that, don't you?
Yes, I do.
See? Okay, moving along.
The next legislature's gonna handle this conversation.
Okay, let's start with the resolutions, and then we have just a short discussion about our 11:15 emergency meeting. So the first resolution is to authorize the county manager to enter into contract with for our real property, vehicle, and equipment.
Move it.
Hold on, Ira?
I think the resolution sort of clarifies it, but I think the title is a misnomer. I think the resolution is limited to personal property.
Personal property?
We already have an agreement in place for real property.
Okay.
I'm sorry, who moved in second that?
Jonathan and Alan. All in
Personal
favor?
funds.
It's called personal property, but
Hold on,
not-
Angela?
It's personal property, not real property.
So that has to be,
No, it's not, no,
It's in the resolution.
It's in the
we're trying to
resolution.
withdraw.
I think we,
Okay, so we'll just,
yeah, I don't do that.
all in favor?
Wait, whoa, whoa, whoa.
are you taking something out of the resolution?
No,
No.
just the title.
All in favor, any opposed? Okay. The second resolution is to authorize an easement with the New York State Electric and Gas for the town of Bethel, known as County Road 183, Airport Road.
Motion.
Alan, Jean, all in favor, any opposed? Okay, and the third resolution is to execute an airport grant agreement, contract certification, and document for the engineer services for the Sullivan County Airport.
Motion.
Jean, Alan, all in favor, any opposed? Okay. Okay, Ed?
Yeah, on this resolution, the one we just passed, the resolution for the airport grant, and why we have to have a meeting following this one, is the FAA notified us 2 or 3 days ago, they were giving us the grant, and they want it back by Monday. As of this point, we still have not had we have a electronic version, they emailed us, but they have not sent us a signed copy yet. We're hoping it comes today in FedEx.
I hope it So does that too. we It was in can the get it paper this signed morning.
and return to them.
So we apologize for the late,
That's,
but
with the
time
FAA,
is,
sometimes they have an interesting time frame when they give us.
and we don't want to lose the $60,000.
They must have
Lord
sent
knows
a
we
ground
need
mail.
it.
They must have sent a ground mail instead of air mail.
So we really need the money, so, okay. Did you have anything else on the,
I should have.
No.
Okay, Bill Cutler, you're up. Good morning.
Good morning. I'll keep this brief. Our recycling tonnage for August is 768.06 tons. That's our second highest month in the last 5 years, which is great news. Our revenue for August is $49,126.90.
That's up.
That's up a little bit from the prior months. August is usually a big month for both tonnage and revenue. It's kind of the conclusion of the summer. We get lots of material in, and we're able to move lots of that material out to private markets. And moving on to a lighter subject today, household hazardous waste. Our registrations are in full swing. We have ads appearing in local papers and good coverage on Thunder 102 and through our press release contacts as well. We have about 60 families pre-registered, and with a week and a half left to go, we hope that number is going to come up quite a bit. Yesterday, I had a chance to tour Taylor Biomass Energy's facility down in Maybrook. It's an interesting facility. They hope to be online within 2 to 3 years. Their big holdup right now is still federal funding and loan guarantees, but their technology has been approved by the Department of Energy, and they are on the short list of federal programs. They're one of 4 companies nationwide that are in competitive allocation for funding from the Fed. So when that becomes available someday down the road, perhaps it'll be another option for us to recover materials from our waste stream.
How would that actually work in practicality?
They essentially act as both a recycling agency and a biomass to energy conversion agency. So they take the waste mass in, they'll process out the recoverable elements, the non-organic such as metals and glass, and combustible components are put on a fluidized bed reactor that's fueled initially by natural gas, but then there's a conversion, and I'm not really too clear about how the conversion process works just yet, But under their patents, it then switches over to a waste mass combustion. It's a closed loop, there's no smokestack. They're actually able to reburn all the combustible carbon compounds in the waste mass to produce energy. So it's a self-feeding.
Are they getting grant money for that, Bill?
They're hoping to, yes. That's part of the federal loan
Do you know how much? I'm
guarantees.
just curious.
Yes, Jim Taylor indicated at this point they've invested approximately $48 million privately in the facility, and they're hoping for plus or minus another $200 million in federal dollars down
Would
the
they
road.
be able to do anything in capturing the methane in our landfill? Not at their facility, I'm talking about here.
As the technology now is presented, probably not.
Okay.
But down the road, there's always a greater option for recovering our viable waste mass and taking the energetic components out of that waste mass and making energy with that material.
Because my understanding is that they have agreements with 11 municipalities over there.
They do, it's actually up, I believe it's 13 now, which is almost their entire allocation for tonnage.
So then that means that the municipalities are getting a break on their energy costs?
I'm not sure about that. We didn't really discuss any of the energy funding package with their program, but at this point, what they are able to do is take a waste mass and turn it into a valuable resource at a projected cost. So there's a savings. You're not exporting materials great distances, and you're able to process a material and not send something up a smokestack and recover energy at the same time.
So when will they be operational, did you say?
They're
3
at
years?
least 2 years. It's probably going to be realistically more like 5 to 10, the way building permits and so forth are done. But it is moving along. You know, 5 years ago they were 10 years away, and now they're 2 to 5 years away. So things are looking up for them.
How many do you have registered for? Corey, do you have another question?
Well, what I was just saying is, like, as far as the methane that's escaping from our landfill, it's not being converted into
Well,
energy.
they're actually, the methane in our current closed landfill is really not escaping. It is being collected, and it's being burned off for emission control requirements from the federal air
But
permission.
not as any kind of energy conversion.
No.
It's not being converted and used.
Well, we've had discussions, carbon harvest, and it was costly,
What
and I
happened
don't
to
know
that?
where it went.
No, no.
There's,
They
and
didn't-
the methane produced in our facility now is a declining balance. The battery is running out of energy at this point. So we'll continue to burn off that methane, because really what we're doing is controlling any stray emissions and odors that would come off that landfill.
Which
That's
we
the
have to do anyway.
prime goal, correct. You know, what we can get energetically out of it is to be determined.
Okay,
That's a
Bill.
big
Eventually
TBD.
kind of,
Anything else?
but for some.
Okay, I know Tom Manzi's here. I'm going to say public comment because I'm sure he's here to discuss some issues with us. Good morning, Tom. How are you?
There's other
Hopefully to be a
I
little
know,
less
but-
contentious than last month.
It's okay. I like that.
Feed
you and
off of that, I
We
don't
have
know
that
about
type of
that.
thing. It's a love-hate relationship.
That's it.
You'd love to hate.
When you said the jail was too expensive, I loved you. Okay, I'll make it brief. I am glad to see that there is discussion among the legislature on this issue to question things. I think 4 years ago, with the previous legislature, you could hear a pin drop when I came in and spoke against the cost of the jail. And I think, and it was really a little disheartening. I told them at one time that I'd rather be any place in the world but in this room right now, because it was a very lonely spot. And I do appreciate that there are other, that we're looking after taxpayers. And I realize that a new facility is always, better. It's better to have something new. At the same point, there is a budget that you have to deal with and a tax increase that you have to deal with. So I have felt that a mid-level project like Woodburn, it could be a possible answer. I really did, and I'm glad you're going to look at that. I'm glad that Scott's done the work with the CLC to call up there and do that. I think that's the stuff that's needed. There are a lot of buildings there, like I pointed out in the jail that LaBelle has designed. 80% of the facility are other buildings. They're not maximum security cells. So if you do utilize those buildings, we do need to have an engineer say we can put some max security cells, possibly. I mean, maybe he would say it's gonna cost you too much. I do appreciate that. I think that you have to look at, like when you go in to look at a new house, you don't go to $1 million houses if you can afford a $200,000 house. You have to look at what you can afford. And finally, I just do want to say, as far as with the Sheriff's Patrol, I know I said in my letter to you guys, I think maybe you do have to talk to Butch and see if it's a 5-year lease anyway. maybe we can use it for the sheriff's patrol, for 500,000. I know when it was in the new jail, it was about 10 million more. I don't know why, but it was another floor involved with the sheriff's patrol.
It wasn't just the sheriff's patrol,
Uh-huh.
it was, the original design was to move the entire public safety
Right.
complex to house.
Right.
So we didn't just pull
Okay.
out a few offices.
Gotcha.
It was pulling out 911, it was
Yeah.
pulling out all that
Probation.
stuff.
Oh, I see.
Probation, it was
Yeah, it
to
was
the
a whole
entire
Right.
public safety
Yeah,
complex.
okay.
Probation made sense there because it was right next to the jail.
Yeah, but I do understand, and then the other, and finally,
Yeah.
one last little thing,
But they stopped the back and forth.
and I know this means, I mean absolutely nothing to any of you, but when the sheriff's patrol, I know the sheriff did speak about, I brought it at a meeting 3 or 4 years ago, that he wanted to use the facility when the jail was cleared out for the sheriff's patrol. So he did ask about that, and my question then is the same as now. If it could be fixed up for a sheriff's patrol, why can't it be fixed up for a jail? That's how I felt then and I feel now. I mean, if it's good enough and it's not falling down and it could be reused, then, I know that's just how I feel. But anyway, thank you very
Well,
much.
no, you're right, nobody wants to build an $80 million jail, and we're gonna try to make this as painless as possible, so we're looking at all the options again, Tommy, so thank you for your comments, and I think I have Ken Walter.
Yes, on the same subject, okay? We gotta stop kicking this can down the road, and we're finally getting to the point where we're gonna have to bite the bullet, depends on what size bullet we're biting, okay? And and right now, the more we're kicking it, that cost of funding it is gonna go up because the economy's picking up, and the loan rates will start going to go up, and it's gonna cost us more as we put it off. The road patrol issue should be addressed. We got the Bushnell building that we have to deal with. And I don't know what the price of that building, the ARC building is, what increases that sale price. You can take that money and say, okay, we'll go towards putting it towards the building. Okay, and we all know about record storage, and Sam alluded to it, and I think that's where that's gonna wind up. And we should take the 100-year part and treat it like Alcatraz and make a tourist attraction.
It's 102, by the way.
102, whatever it is, treat it like Alcatraz and make a
I
tourist
said that at the
attraction.
last meeting.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, so before I close, just remember, September 24th, Tuesday, and you have to RSVP to Michelle, thank you so much. Any other comment? Okay, motion to adjourn, and we have
Jonathan
11:15 in the, or here, wait,
Right.
right? Okay.
There's a meeting in the other room.
Oh, that's, I'm sorry. Thanks, Ed, thanks, everybody.